So if we follow the rule of the upper left-hand corner, we've taken care of our title tags, and now it's time to look at the path. The path is the part of the URL that shows up after the .com. So you've got your main domain name, and it's what you give out to people, but everything that comes after the .com, that's called the path, and it's a great place to put your keywords. So let's look at how Drupal handles that. First, I'm coming back to my SEO checklist, and as you can see, it's already checked off page title module for me since we just did that. So I'm going to click Save, and that saves my work, shows a timestamp of when it was completed. Now we go to the Path tab. Here in Paths, we've got Clean URLs already turned on, one of the very first things we did on the video. If you don't have it turned on, you're going to want to turn it on now. It's a critical part of working on your URLs. And remember, a clean URL is a URL that doesn't have any weird characters in it. It doesn't have a question mark or an equal sign or anything like that. So if you go up here and look at your URL in your site and you're seeing something like question mark Q equals, something like that, then you know you don't have clean URLs turned on, so make sure you go take care of that. Now, this is the path, and built into Drupal is a module called the Path module, and it's not something that's turned on by default, but it is a default module. So I'm going to go first and show you a piece of content. We're going to work on this same piece. I'll open this up in a new tab and click Edit, and you'll notice I don't have anything down here that really lets me edit the path of this module, or this node, sorry. So we're going to go back up to modules, and there under the default, we're going to find the path, and I love it. It tells you what it does. Allows users to rename URLs. Well, that's what we want. So we're going to turn that on, go down here to the very bottom, click Save. Let me go back to my piece of content here, click Edit, and you'll notice what it gives me is a URL path tab that I can click, and now I can put anything I want in here. Notice right now what the path is, node/38. Well, that's not communicating a whole lot to the search engines about what this node is about, how to price Seekonk, Massachusetts real estate. So I want to make sure that I rewrite that into something that's much more useful. So again, we go back to the screen, we go to the URL path settings, and we write something like Seekonk MA real estate pricing. Okay. And the dashes, why am I using dashes? I could use underscores. Google really has said that they treat dashes and underscores the same. I like dashes just because it's easier for the average person to read that. And then if you take that out and you run it all together, I'm not 100% sure that Google is going to really understand where to draw those breaks in those words. So I put the dashes in to help both the eye and the bot figure out what's going on. And then when I click Save, and I go back to this same piece of content, notice now I have this nice, beautiful path. It's got my keywords in it, and I am a really happy person about that because I know when Google comes in, they're going to see, hey, the page title, Seekonk, Massachusetts real estate pricing. The path, Seekonk, Massachusetts real estate pricing. The title of the node, how to price Seekonk, Massachusetts real estate. We're getting that repetition. We're really focusing Google in, and we're saying this is what this page is all about. One thing I know about myself is that I tend to forget all the little extra steps that you have to do when you create a piece of content. And that's why I'm really happy about a module called the Path Auto module. Path Auto, what it does is it automatically creates a path based on the node title. So if I'm going to go in here, and again, I'm going to go back to my SEO checklist, and then into my paths section, and there's the Path Auto. I've already downloaded it and uploaded it to my Drupal site. and I'm going to enable it now and go down here to the paths section. Oh, there we go. Just under other. So we go to Path Auto, turn that on, and click Save. Now, when I go to that same piece of content and I click the Edit button, I'm going to have a little bit more to this. There's a checkbox that says create an automatic alias for this path, for this piece of content. So say I just created this piece of content, I didn't write my own path, and this checkbox was checked. Let me delete this out just so that we get it back to a kind of a state there. All right, we have that checkbox checked, and say I forgot to write it, and I click Save. It's going to try to figure out the best path for me. And notice what it gave me was content / how to price Seekonk Massachusetts real estate. Now, this is not the most ideal path. The one I wrote was actually better. However, if I had forgotten to do this and my piece of content came up as node / something, well, this is way, way better. Now, let's look at how to actually configure Path Auto so that it will write even better paths for me. Like, for example, the word content, that's not really related to Seekonk Massachusetts real estate. So that's a word I want to get out of there. So let's go back to my SEO checklist. Now that I have my module installed, you'll see that I have a configure link. I'm going to click that link, and it takes me to a URL aliases page. This is created for me by the Path Auto module. And I'm really only going to talk to you today about the general settings. These other settings are important, but they're set up properly out of the box. If you want to go through them one at a time and really try to figure them out, that's fine. But general settings is where we're going to spend most of our time today. The separator verbose, again, it's just kind of a tool. You can turn it on or off. It helps you to see what's going on, not necessary. Separator, it's got a dash. I'm happy with the dash. I'm going to leave that alone. Character case, it's going to change. So remember, what it's doing is it's taking the node title and it's changing that into a path. So what we're doing right now is we're giving it instructions on how to do that. So it's saying, hey, should I leave the uppercase, the capitalizations the same, or should I change them to lowercase? The default, change them to lowercase, is what I recommend. Maximum alias length. If I have a really long node title, is it going to write a really long path for me? That's not really good. So 100 characters, that's probably pretty good. Maximum component length, that's just a piece of the path. Maximum number of objects to alias in a bulk update. So a bulk update is if you've got a website, a Drupal site that you've had out for a year or two or even longer, and you've not created proper paths for all your content, then bulk update is a way that you can get the Path Auto module to go in and write nice, clean, keyword-rich paths throughout all the content on your site based on the settings that we're entering right now. It is not something I'm going to use for a brand new site, but if that's something you're interested in, back up your database and then try this tool. It's actually a pretty good tool. And then update action. So update action is where you can get into a little bit of trouble. What it's saying is, hey, what should Path Auto do if there's already a path created? And the default here is create a new alias and delete the old alias. So say you have a piece of content up on Google and it's in a certain path and you have some people linking to it and you have it set as create a new alias and delete the old alias. So what Path Auto is going to do is create a new alias for that piece of content and delete the old alias. Well, now all these links that were coming into your site are pointing to a dead page, something they're going to get there and it's going to say, hey, page not found. This is bad. This is especially bad for SEO because if Google had put this page into their search index and then it disappeared, well, now they're going to drop that page from the search index, which is bad for your traffic. So what you want to do instead is, my suggestion is do nothing. Leave the old alias intact. Now, what about this other one? Create a new alias and leave the existing alias functioning. So here's the existing one. Create a new one. Now what do you have? You have two pieces of content at two different locations that have the exact same text on them. And this is, it's kind of a duplicate content issue where Google's going to go, wow, you have two different pages with the exact same information. I'm not sure which one is the most important one. Which one should I put in the search index? And so, that second option is not really a great option either. So what we're going to do is we're going to set it for do nothing, leave the old alias intact. Now, there is a fourth option that's not shown here, and it requires another module that we're going to install just a little bit later in the video. After we've installed that module, we'll come back here and I'll show you the fourth option, which is a pretty decent option. All right, so the next things you're not really going to worry about, reduce strings to letters from ASCII 96. If you know what that is, that might be something that you use. If you're not familiar with ASCII 96 is, don't sweat this setting, but basically it reduces the character set to a very limited group of characters. I really wouldn't worry about it too much. Strings to remove. So these are letter strings that it's looking for, basically words that are so common in English language usage that they are meaningless to put into a path. And so what it's doing is it's going to take your node title, take out those things, put dashes in for the spaces, and make that your new path. I am going to go ahead and show you the node path settings. Now, the node path settings are where we got that word content. Okay, so the default path pattern here is you put the word content, put a slash, which to Google is going to look like a directory. So basically you're saying, here's my front page, and then there's a subdirectory called content where all of my pages exist. And again, it's just, to me, it's a waste of a good place to put a keyword. And this is the default pattern, and then it's going to use the title raw as the default title of my, or the default path of my node. It's going to take the title raw, it's going to take out all the replacement strings, it's going to replace the spaces with dashes, and put that as my path. So I'm going to take out the word content because I think it's a waste. The slash then becomes redundant. And now all it's going to do is put my title raw as the default replacement string. Notice I have page here, I have story here. Again, if I created something like listings or blog posts, those fields would all also show up here, and I'd be able to set default replacement patterns for them. Bulk generate, I'm not going to do that. I only have a couple of pieces of content on the site, and I'm not really worried about that. Now I save my configuration. And really, I'm going to worry about my existing content later on. Right now, let's create a new piece of content and see how it works. So I'm going to say create content. I'm going to create a story here. So I'm going to write a new piece of content about Seekonk schools. And I'm just going to put some little placeholder stuff here. I've got my title. I'll go ahead and write a page title for that as well. And this is another one of those situations where you want your page title to actually have the Massachusetts in there, but the title of your node, maybe you don't want to have it. So I've got that all set. Now let's go down to the URL path. Notice the automatic alias by default is checked. And so if I had wanted to write my own, I could unclick it, write my own, but since it's automatically checked and that's the default, I'm going to let's pretend I forgot to write it. And I'm going to click save. Let's see what happens. And there we go. It took the pattern that I had changed in the settings. It had replaced it, taken out the title of the node, replaced the uppercase characters with lowercase characters, replaced the space with a dash, and made that my new path. And now I can always go back to this particular path, and this piece of content will show up. And so now you see the value and the power of the Path Auto module. So now let's go back to the SEO checklist, and we're going to go to the URL Paths tab. Notice that it's already checked for me. That means I've enabled it. But again, notice this one has a date stamp, this one does not. So I'm going to go down here, click the Save It looked for me, it knew that I'd already put it in there, but it didn't have the date stamp. Now that I've saved it, it says, okay, bam, this is when I did that. And notice I have a couple other things here on URL paths. We're going to cover that in just a few minutes. So what I've done here is we've gone through your Drupal site. We've made sure that you are able to write paths that are search engine friendly. We've made sure that clean URLs are turned on, and then we've enabled a tool that will make sure that if human nature kicks in and you forget to write that path, it'll write a nice, good, clean one for you. And that is how you can take control of the paths in your Drupal site.